Hey guys, it's me, Sonya the author, and I want to come to you and talk to you guys because this is like the very first 10 videos that I've been recording, and I'm nervous. So I'm not exactly sure what you guys want to know about me or my writing style or my writing process. Um, I've been talking about my books a little bit, but I don't know. Do you want me to talk more about my books, more about my future books, the books I have planned, the books that I have in the past that I unpublished? Like, what do you want to know about me? Um, I'm new to these Authortube streets, and I don't know exactly which direction I want to go in. But I do know that I think it's worth a try to try to figure out how to do this. I figure it's worth a try. Um, Once again, I'm going to introduce myself if I haven't already in this video. I'm Sonya the author. I wrote several books in the past. I won't call myself a novelist, but I've been writing a lot of novelettes and novellas lately. The few novels that I do have, I'm not really proud of them. So I don't really claim them. The ones that are available to purchase are novellas and novelettes, which are shorter versions of novels. They're a novella is like half of a novel. A novelette is half of a novella. Um, and yeah, it's longer than a short story, but shorter than a novel, and those are what I write primarily. I'm happy to write them. I enjoy what I do. Most of my books are Christian themed. And I say Christian themed, not Christian books, because uh, the whole time I wouldn't say everything the characters do are something that an ideal Christian would do. They're all flawed. Now, Christians are flawed, but usually in books, you try to make them seem as perfect as possible. And my characters just aren't. They're rebels. They're rebels, they're stubborn, they're very flawed. I think they're more fun that way. Um, yeah, so what got me into writing? I started writing when I was 12 years old, officially. And when I say I started writing, I mean not like I just started writing. I mean I've been writing for I wrote years before then, but I started writing to like get things published when I was about 12 years old. I actually started with a book of poetry, and I don't know where that book is right now. I really don't. But I had a bunch of poems. I used to crank out poems like every day. I was a poem writer, and I thought that I was gonna turn them into spoken word poetry and then songs, but it never really happened that way. Um, I was encouraged not to become a poet full time because I was 12, of course, but I wanted to write poems for my career. I was told, "Hey, become a journalist if you like writing," and I said, "Okay." And then I wanted to do massage therapy, and I was encouraged to do physical therapy instead, and it is wonky. Side note: I am a massage therapist in real life, as well as a writer. I own a day spa, but that's a story for another time. When I went to college, I wrote short stories, and I loved it. I took creative writing classes and other college writing classes, and I loved it so much. I even took a children's literature class. I just love writing. I just couldn't get enough. Um, and so after graduating college, I had a book that I wrote. Right, it was called Miguel and I, but I had a friend who became my best friend. His name was Jabril. So I said I'm gonna name my book after him. So I got it copywritten as Jabril and I, even though it was Miguel and I. And I never really published that book. Okay, I did publish it, but immediately after publishing it, I took it down so nobody could read it. It was a bad book. I didn't edit it. It was a novel, but it wasn't edited correctly because I just didn't know enough to do all that. I didn't have a proofreader, didn't have beta reader, didn't have an alpha reader. I didn't have any of that. Then a few years later, when I got back into writing, Unlikely Vessels was the first book that I actually decided to crank out. Was it Unlikely Vessels? Yeah, it was Unlikely Vessels. So that was in 2018. And my daughter was born in 2018. So that's when I started writing again. I said, I want to do something here. Because I was a stay-at-home mom. I was just sitting around most of the day. Like, I'll teach the kids their colors, their shapes, their numbers, stuff like that. But, they had nap time or they want to play. And it's just kind of like, okay, well, what do I do with my time now? So whenever they went to sleep or somebody came over to play with them, I would be writing or doing something like that, or writing down ideas so that when they finally went to sleep at night, I can work on my books. And so Unlucky Vessels was born. And I dedicated that to my daughter. And then a few years went by, and then there's a pandemic, and everybody was stuck in the house. And my husband was working 15-hour shifts. And so I didn't see him a lot. I was still home with my kids. And I said, I'm going to write something. I'm just going to write something else because I want to. And I wrote Charlotte and the Growers. I unpublished that one. And I wrote Webe and Lucci. Discover the art of creating soul food or something along that lines. And that one was just for my kids because they are of mixed ethnicity. They are both African American and Nigerian American. And so I wanted to let them know, like, hey, your African American side is just as important as your Nigerian side. And I wrote little short stories to kind of bring them into their own as they grow up that they haven't read yet. They haven't read it yet. What else? So I wrote a short story called Laugh Louder, which was a story about a woman going to therapy because of an incident that occurred, and the prescription was to literally laugh. That was a prescription because laughter is the best medicine. Get it? Okay. Anywho, and then I wrote a book called The One. And oftentimes, if you see them published anywhere, they're usually published together. The One and Laugh Louder, because they were short stories. They weren't novelettes or novellas or novels. They were just short stories. So they're usually seen together. Then I wrote Room for Two, and I'm conflicted about Room for Two. So I believe I started it after I wrote Unlikely Vessels, but then I stopped writing it. And then when I came back to it, I kind of forgot what the story was about because it was so long. So when I was going through editing it, I cut out a lot of the stuff. So it was originally a novel, and now it's a novella because I cut out a lot of the stuff. It was more spicy than a jalapeno. Just because I was bored and I wanted to write. I wanted to see if I could do it. So it was spicy. Now it's not so spicy. You need no milk for it. No bread. You're good. It's not spicy. When we're talking about spice level for a book, it's not spicy. No milk or bread needed. Then I wrote Fortunate after my divorce. Now here's the thing about my divorce. This is really weird. My ex-husband did not want to get a divorce, nor did I want to get divorced, but we ended up divorced. It's crazy. Even as the divorce proceedings were going on, he was saying that I didn't really want this. And I told him I didn't really want it either. So while we're getting divorced, it was very stupid. It was so dumb. But instead of calling it off, we went through with it. And I cranked out a book afterwards. Oh, I cranked out a book, a love story afterwards. Now, in some of my books, they have things that are going on in my life actually in the book at some point in time with some character. Not all the characters, not every scene, but some scenes will have a conversation or two that I've actually had in real life that I just put into my book, into my story, because it makes me laugh sometimes when I read it. I'm like, oh yeah, that really did happen. It really did happen that way. So, that was that book. And then since Fortunate came out last year, 2025, I was thinking about what to write next. And Someone to Call My Lover was that book. I was literally listening to Janet Jackson's song, Someone to Call My Lover. And the words are, back on the road again, feeling kind of lonely again, looking for the right guy to be mine. Friends say I'm crazy because easily I fall in love. Gotta do it different, Jay, this time. And then it goes into, maybe I meet him in a bar, he'll drive a funky car, maybe I meet him in a club and fall so deeply in love. He'll tell me I'm the one, and we'll have so much fun. I'll be the girl of his dreams, maybe. So when I was listening to the song, first off, it's one of my favorite songs. I was jamming to it, right? And I said, this will be a great book to write about a woman that is looking for love, maybe in a bar, maybe he'll drive a funky car, maybe you meet him in the club and fall in love. I just said, I have to write the story. I have to write the story. And then as I was writing it, it just came to me. Like, it was kind of easy to write. Like, the storyline, it just came naturally. And then, so I actually started writing the book last year, a little bit after writing Fortunate. So Fortunate came out July 2025. I started writing Someone to Call My Lover after listening to the song. Once again, newly divorced, listening to music, just wrote a book that came out, and I'm feeling pumped. So like my writing juices are going. So I said, I'm gonna write another book. And I didn't have the name for the book yet. And then something happened. I can't remember what happened, but then I just said the name of the book. And then my dad died. I know. Not romantic at all. My dad died. And I was trying to get this book done. I said, I need to finish this by New Year's. I wanted it to be a New Year's book. I need to finish it by New Year's. And, but I was grieving because my dad had died. And it wasn't all of a sudden because he was sick, but I just wasn't ready for it. And so I incorporated a little bit of that into the book. Just a little bit. If you notice on the cover, there's a Jeep. My dad drove a Jeep. He loved Jeeps. And then there's also an urn. And then there is bright, the characters, you only see the silhouettes. The silhouettes are dark to represent, death and stuff like that. But the book is it's an upbeat book. It does talk about, the main character's father passing, because my father really did pass, and I was grieving, and I needed it to kind of, writing is my therapy, so I was kind of like getting it out of my system, a little bit. And so I wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote, and I said, this has to be a love story. This can't be a sad story. And so my characters fell in love. I said, yes, I did again. I made some characters fall in love, and yeah, that's the story of Someone to Call My Lover. Now the sequel is something else. I'm not gonna spoil it for you guys. I want you to read the book first. Tell me how you think about it, and we'll talk. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.